The moon plays a beautiful role in connecting us to our earthly existence. Gravity, keeping it close, helps to shape our perception of reality. Sometimes the waves are calm, and sometimes they're stormy. Sometimes the tides are low, and sometimes they're high. But still, the moon's presence remains, beckoning us to find peace despite the tidal shifts. The moon can be hidden or hard to find in the sky, seeming lost behind the clouds. It can be discreet, or it can be bold and luminous, looking like a bright beacon guiding us through the darkness. At times, it activates our imagination, creating beautiful silhouettes, but those same silhouettes can morph into terrifying illusions, keeping us up at night. The moon reveals subtle qualities of one's hidden personality. It has a strong influence over one's life direction and choices. We often make choices to accommodate our psychological or emotional state. In us all is an inner poet, and the placement of the moon determines these notable qualities of one's inner poet. Wherever the moon sits in the birth chart, it illuminates the bewitching, rich, complex inner landscape of one's psyche. Hi beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel Soul Awakening with Shantia. Welcome to the start of the moon series. So this series is going to be split into 4 parts. So for this first part, we are going to be focusing on descriptive information about the moon. We're going to be talking about symbology. We are also going to get an introduction into moon's place in Vedic astrology, or Jyotisha, science of light. And we're also going to be talking about the mythology of moon. Quick reminder, I'm not a technical astrologer. The way I like to approach things is I like to kind of dive in as a student. So a lot of the notes I have with you today are notes I've gotten from the internet. So I'd like to credit the internet and the people who have done research, especially on the mythology, gods, the deities, give them credit. And I use my intuition to guide me with focusing on the most standout information that resonates with me. So for part 2 of the moon series, we're going to be talking about moon through the zodiac signs, which I know people are probably looking the most forward to. Then we're going to be discussing, for part 3, moon through the houses. For part 4, we're going to conclude this moon series with moon's conjunctions. And as you saw in the sun series, if you've checked out my sun series, I like to use specific examples. So I use examples, multiple examples typically, of celebrities, people who are well known in history. Perhaps I like to use their charts, and sometimes it's accurate. So honestly, I just use my intuition to guide me and to just gather the information. So that's what's most important to me. So be ready for that. Be ready for examples so that you can see how this is reflected in your chart. So my hope at the end of this video is that you get to have a fun, deep dive, creative exploration of moon. And this helps you to feel more excited if you want to study astrology, if you want to share astrology with other people, or you want to dive into your own chart. This is a fun way for you to learn. And I find that this is the part, I'm not the most excited to begin with. That's why I tend to procrastinate when it comes to part 1 for the series, is because the research part is like the hardest part, like getting all the information. I just want to dive in right away, and I just want to like start reading charts and seeing what my intuition is picking up. That's the most fun. So this video is going to be broken down into 4 parts. So for part 1, we're going to be focusing on moon's role in Jyotish, or Vedic astrology. The astrology system of the Vedas is Vedic astrology. Jyotish is a technical correct term. Then part 2, we're going to be focusing on like some facts. So I have some scientific facts that supposedly, scientists researched and they got this information about the moon. I'm actually going to use that to interpret intuitively. I'm going to use that technical information to translate that into symbolic information. Then we're also going to talk about some of the main symbology, what you've heard about moon perhaps. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that moon is associated with emotions. And then we also have some observational things that are also going to come through. So like when you're looking at moon in the sky, what are you seeing? What are you observing? What are you experiencing and receiving from that? Part 3, we're going to give an introduction to moon mythology. So this part is going to have lots of notes from the internet that I'm going to go over. And then I'll just see whatever sticks out to me. There were a few deities associated with the moon that I handpicked. And I decided to do a little bit more deeper research, or use that deeper research, bring that out so that we can talk about the signifiers of the stories associated with these moon deities. And then for part 4, we're just going to go ahead and do a quick summary and talk about the overall outlook of what moon is supposed to represent to us in our hearts, in our charts. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started with part 1 here. So why does Jyotish rely heavily on the moon to understand and interpret a person's birth chart? So part of the reason why Jyotish Vedic astrology focuses a lot on the moon as opposed to seasonal sun solar energy of Western astrology is because Jyotish, in order to give accurate horoscopes, the moon gives very accurate interpretations of how that can be determined. So Jyotish or Jyotisha is the ancient Indian science of light derived from Sanskrit roots, Jyoti, meaning light, and Isha, meaning God or Lord, that studies the influence of celestial bodies on human life. So Jyotish is great for horoscope predictions and planetary periods, allowing for an astrologer to get very detailed and very accurate. Also remember that Rahu and Ketu, which also have an influence over our lives, every time Rahu and Ketu are always shifting into a different sign every year. They are the shadows of the moon. So they also have a significant relationship to the moon. Okay, let's go over some basic terminology. I talked about this in the Sun series. What is a Graha? I'm used to calling planets planets, but if you've listened to Paresh Trivedi, he's one of my favorite Jyotish Vedic astrology teachers. He talks about how the only planet we have here is Earth, because Earth is the plane. And if you've looked at different cosmology or mappings of what Earth looks like or has been interpreted as in the past, it's been seen as a plane, while you have the other energy celestial bodies around it, which are grahas. So I think it's important to make that distinction because I think that it does influence us differently, and I definitely see that when I'm reading a person's chart. So gra in Sanskrit means to seize, grasp, hold. So an easy way for one to remember gra is grab, grab. Graha, that which seizes or influences your being. So the 9 main planets make up the Navagrahas. So this isn't including Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. So you can refer to Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus as celestial bodies, whereas the main planets make up the 9 Navagrahas, including Rahu and Ketu. So Rahu and Ketu are specifically called shadow grahas, or Chaya grahas. They are living conscious forces that represent our inner and outer life. They shape your karma, emotions, thoughts, and destiny. Grahas create divine activations in your life, and they typically can be seen with the naked eye, whereas Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, not so much. So here's my chart of the 9 Navagrahas we have here and what they represent. I have the translation. So today we're going to be talking about Chandra, which is moon. Chandra. And I love to go back to the, I guess you can call it Vedic or Hindi translation of it, because those specific alphabet, the words that are used, the letters that are used are very specific, right? And I think they're very specific to the specialty of, or the importance of that graha. So I will call it planets, by mistake, because I have not made that switch yet. But I just want you to know, to keep in mind that it is a graha. So it seizes, it grasps, it holds, whereas Earth here works, this is where all the grahas are sending its influence, is here to Earth. There's a reason why you don't see Earth in the birth chart, because we're on it. So let's go ahead and talk about the Vedic cosmology of the moon. In the Vedic cosmology, the moon, Chandra, is a central divine celestial body representing the mind, manas, emotions, and consciousness. It is considered or rather the luminous heavenly body that nourishes life, herbs, and plants, often referred to as a source of immortality, Amritya Maya, and a bridge for souls. So the Rig Veda states that Chandra Manaso Jata translates into the meaning that the moon was born from the mind of the cosmic being Purusha. So I think this is important. We're getting we're tapping into Chandra's mythology here when we're referring to the moon. But I like to put that emphasis of Vedic astrology because that's the perspective I'm coming from, is I want to lean very heavily into Vedic astrology to help educate me on moon significance. So Chandra is, in Vedic astrology, considered a masculine deity, often depicted with a chariot, representing nurturing, intuition, and maternal energy. He controls emotional rhythms, sleep, and fertility. So I think that's very interesting that their Chandra is considered to be more of a masculine deity. The 16 kalas, the phases. The moon is believed to have 16 kalas, or fractions that decrease during the waning phase, Krishna Paksha, and increase during the waxing phase, Shukla Paksha, reflecting the mind's changing nature. So the moon has different phases. And as we know, when we're looking at the moon's phase is different every single day. And it's a different nakshatra, different phase every single day. And this is kind of helping us to, that's why we don't feel the same way every day. Our moods fluctuate. So the position in the cosmos, the Vedic texts sometimes place the moon above the sun or as a crucial nearby celestial sphere. It acts as a marker of time, passing through 27 nakshatras, the lunar mansions, each month. So Chandra is also known as Soma, associated with healing. Nishkar, which is the cause of night, and Ashadhipati, the lord of herbs, medicines, and Nakshatrapati, lord of constellations. So here we're just getting a bit of perspective from Vedic astrology, talking about the importance of moon's role and what it is associated with. So we have herbs, we have healing here, we have night, and we have the constellations in the sky. All right, let's do a quick symbology overview of moon before we dive into the descriptive and more factual information according to science. So the moon is supposed to represent our psychology. That's often what I see when I'm looking at someone's chart. I often refer to the fourth house or moon as our psychology. But that can also translate into inner landscape, which is a bit of a different perspective because the inner landscape is telling you how you work and how you operate. Our psyche, our psychology, actually the terminology of the psychology has to do with the soul's journey. So psychology here is the scientific study of the mind, mental process, and behavior in humans and animals. So that's why when we're talking about the moon, I don't have it written here, but the moon is supposed to be our mind, right? So Mercury is our intellectual, interpretive mind that's analyzing and trying to understand information and sort it, whereas the moon is more of the understanding of that mental energy, how it fluctuates, how it moves, according to how we process things in our body, how we process things mentally, how we process things emotionally. So it's more of the emotional mind that is based off of your own upbringing, right? What you grew up in, that influenced you, your relationship to your mother. We'll get there. So it's the inner landscape, right? How does your terrain, your inner terrain work and operate? So our sun would probably be more apparent as far as what role we're trying to partake in this life. it definitely highlights your dharma, but that moon is going to decide how you approach it. How are you going to approach life? Because our moon is perceiving life a certain way. It's like, okay, I'm perceiving it. Sometimes people are like really sensitive. So maybe they prefer more peace, more quiet environments. Some people like stimulation. So they prefer more activity, engagement with the world. Our moon can also represent our imagination, our fantasies, our delusions. So imagination, I talked about this in one of my pick a card videos. I think it was the February reading where I talked about there's a difference between imagination and vision. I think actually sun would highlight very well a vision for what we have for our life, because it illuminates everything. It brightens up everything. But I feel like the moon is very much tied to our fantasies, what we fantasize about. What we would imagine we would like, what we would imagine we want. So that influences how you approach things in life, right? Maybe your sun is pulling you towards a communicative career, but your moon would decide, well, how am I going to approach it, right? So for me, for example, as a moon in Sagittarius, I like to dive into the knowledge of, sacred knowledge, and I like to communicate that. So as a sun Virgo, I'm definitely drawn to communication, but the things I communicate about have often to do with what is my favorite topic is astrology, Vedic astrology, understanding myself, how I operate as a human. But moon can also be delusional, where it pulls us into those fantasies. Even darker fantasies are definitely highlighted there in that moon energy. When I was doing my Munster Inside series, a lot of them had an affliction with the moon. Pretty much all of them had some sort of affliction with the moon, some sort of heavy energy associated with the moon, where their fantasies got caught up into these darker illusions because of some sort of pressure, of some sort of issues they had with the mother, some sort of upbringing or childhood trauma that they experienced. So that influenced some sort of darker fantasies, or they fixated on it. They didn't get help. They didn't speak to anybody about it. They didn't try to improve it. They just kept falling into that deeper hole of their darker fantasies, and eventually they took action on it. Moon can also represent your sense of safety and security in this world. So again, when we're choosing to decide how we move out in this world and make decisions, most of the times those decisions are going to be based off of what we feel a sense of safety and security around. So ultimately, I think the moon especially influences who you engage with and who you interact with, right? Let's say you don't like small talk or you feel really awkward with small talk. Well, then maybe you're going to avoid people who are small talkers, and you're going to prefer the company of people who are big thinkers, who are very expansive in their mental processing. I find that, just looking at some of the charts, a lot of celebrities, people who are famous, are very wealthy. They have earth houses or earth signs quite heavily associated with the moon. And so they definitely find a sense of safety and security when it comes to their physical possessions and accumulating more and more things. The moon also represents how you feel nourished in life. Like what makes you feel taken care of, loved, or supported. So sometimes we don't understand people's actions, but if you look at their moon, that will let you know why doing something like being addicted to drugs, perhaps, or being toxic is giving them some sort of sense of nourishment. People don't do things for nothing. They always do it to get something out of it. So best know that even if someone is participating in poor behavior, they're getting some sense of nourishment, some benefit out of that. And that moon placement will tell you what that is. The moon is also representation of that karmic dynamic that you have with your mother. So we all have some sort of karma associated with our parents, our upbringing, our childhood, and our moon is going to tell us what that's like. What circumstance did you grow up in when it came to your upbringing? Perhaps you had a mother moon who was there, or was the moon more hidden? I also added here, last on the list, complexity. So moon adds complexity to us. It's why we're not simple people is because I think our sun is more like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to create in this world. It's that simple. But I think moon complicates everything because our moon is like internally we're processing all this information and we're trying to understand what sort of life we want to create from ourselves based off of how we're interpreting that. So it complicates things because it filters, your moon is, it filters things and it decides, you know, someone can do something and you can be offended by it, or they can do something and it can cheer you up. Like that's how complex our moon can be. You know, sometimes we take things personally. Our moon will definitely tell you why you take things personally or what things trigger you. Your moon will show you what things trigger you. So in that sense, it is a representation of our mysterious side that is gradually revealed over time. So I think the moon is quite mysterious. It doesn't have one note or one angle. Again, the phase is different. So throughout life, I feel like your evolution is definitely represented through your moon. How are you going to evolve in life? Right? So let's say a person goes from a moon in Libra, and they go to their moon moves to Taurus in their D9 chart. Well, it looks like that person over time, instead of having like a very windy mind where they're trying to make choices and decision, maybe they can be indecisive, maybe their mind changes quite frequently, they switched over, or they gradually evolved to someone who has more of a grounded mind, is more present, perhaps. Moon through signs. So moon is exalted in Taurus, but it's specifically exalted in 3 degrees Kritika. So I thought this was interesting because when I was thinking about exaltation, the first nakshatra that came to mind was Rohini nakshatra. And then I was like, hold on a minute, isn't it exalted in Kritika? And I was like wondering, well, why is moon exalted in Kritika when it likes, everyone always talks about moon in Rohini nakshatra? Well, in the Kritika early part degrees of Taurus, this is where someone is developing a high sense of self-awareness. So we're moving from moon in Aries and we're moving into the Taurus energy. So Kritika is that transformative, fiery energy that is dedicated, you know, if it's evolved, it's going to be dedicated to truth, doing things the right way. You know, Kritika, I like to think about it as critical feedback or having scissors, cutting away. And this cutting away is cutting away of the false lies. So that transformative fire is purifying things. So moon is more in a purified state in Kritika. It's also grounding here in that earthly energy. And it's leaning into a leadership, a sense of self, where one is being guided through life with the sense of true self, a sense of who they really are. Then we have the Rohini part. So this is 10 degrees to 23 degrees Rohini. This is where moon is expressive. It feels happy. It's earthy. It's focused on earthy beauty, pleasure, you know, being present in that beauty, being present in the body. So one feels more peace and contentment with this moon placement. This is where one's manifestations seem to maybe be flowing quite well. You know, Taurus calls for us to work and put in the work. So moon is willing to put in consistent work and energy. Moon, I think, feels simplified in Taurus energy because, you know, Taurus, especially around Rohini, is not complicating things. It's like, okay, I like this. It's as simple as that. It likes what it likes, and that's what it works on. There's no complexity that's developing here. Like Scorpio would be more complex here. There is opulence, there's groundedness. So, you know, people tend to have maybe more of a steady psyche because they have a moon in Taurus. Then we have moon in Scorpio. So this is where its debilitation is taking place, specifically at 3 degrees Jyeshtha. So I don't believe in just a bad placement. I think there can be benefits to it, but the reason why moon is considered debilitated or at its lowest point here in this nakshatra, in this degree, and in the sign is because you're having to master quite a bit of Shakti life force energy. Jyesha is connected to that serpent-like energy, and you're having to master it. It's specifically tied to the Oberos, so that's like the head and the tail. Also takes me to Rahu and Ketu. You're kind of like mastering, synchronizing your energies. But Jyesha in Scorpio is fixed water, where your emotions are very fixed and you're experiencing these like heavy waves of emotion over and over and over, and there's no reprieve. So that's where it can be very debilitated. When someone is really working on their karma here, and they're finding a way to be still, and they're finding a way to become a lot more internally disciplined, this can be a beautiful placement, very powerful placement. If someone is vengeful and they're not healing their wounds, then they can become very manipulative and confused. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about Moon in tarot. We have on the left, this is the tarot card for Moon. For those of you who've seen tarot cards, we've all seen this card. And we're going to talk about some of the symbology. This card design specifically was created in early 1900s, so 1909. So what I wrote here is part of the major arcana, is what you would be calling it. So these are the cards, when you slap it down, they had significant influence over your life. Like there's a particularly strong energetic theme that's showing up because of that major arcana card. So this card specifically depicts a night scene where two large pillars are shown. So we got two large pillars. A wolf and a domesticated dog howl at the moon while a crayfish emerges from the water. And it's funny, I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, I thought that was it kind of looked like a Scorpio. So it's really interesting because it looks like this. The crayfish thing it looks like a Scorpion, and it's in the water. So it took me to like Scorpio energy, and it's at the bottom. Moon is at that debilitation, and Scorpio says like deep depths of water. The moon has 16 chief and 16 secondary rays, and is shedding the moisture of fertilizing dew in great drops, totaling 15 in the Rider-Waite deck. Okay. So the moon has 16 chief and 16 secondary rays. Okay, very specific there. And it's shedding the moisture of the fertilizing dew in great drops, which are all yod shaped. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know this. I'm learning with you guys right now. That's why I said I have a lot of notes today, and we're going to learn together. We're going to have fun. Waite writes that the moon card carries several divinatory associations. So the moon can represent hidden enemies, danger, calumny, darkness, terror, deception, occult forces, error. Reverse, it could represent instability, inconsistency, silence, lesser degrees of depiction, and error. So according to A.E. Waite's 1911 book, The Pictorial Key to the Tarot, the card represents life of the imagination apart from life of the spirit. The dog and the wolf are the fears of the natural mind in the presence of that place of exit when there is only reflected light to guide it. The intellectual light is a reflection, and beyond it is the unknown mystery which it cannot reveal. Additionally, it illuminates our animal nature, and according to Waite, the message is peace, be still. And it may be that there shall come a calm upon the animal nature, while the abyss beneath shall cease from giving up a form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just talk about my take on the moon card energy. It does definitely feel like strong synergistic energy. Even though we have the moon here, it actually looks sort of like the moon and sun combined together. The pillars feel like a portal of some sort. So I'm getting this energy of a connection to the underworld. One of the goddesses connected to portals or thresholds is actually Hecate. That's interesting. We have a bit of oceanic water-like energies. We also have the green nourishment, the abundance of the earth. So that takes me to herbs, and it looks like we have some like mushrooms connected to it. all the animals seem to be looking at the moon. When I was looking up why do dogs howl at the moon, they said they don't. It just seems like they do, because they're just trying to find each other. So I think the howl is supposed to be a representation of us connecting to, it could be a way for us to interpret as us connecting to divine, so we don't have to literally have conversations with them, but they're talking to us. And I think when it's night, it feels more apparent that there's like an invisible force or energy that's guiding us. Yeah. And the moon looks very luminous, looks very light, bright here, very noticeable. And maybe the moon, because of its different phases, it can activate things in us. It can activate really positive moods, and sometimes it can activate very challenging energies, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. And then they have the animal nature. I've had cards in oracle card decks that talk about leaning into your instincts and your primal nature. In the darkness, we have to lean into our instincts sometimes because we can't see. So, our intellectual mind kind of goes to sleep because we can't see. Like our Mercury sort of goes to sleep at night, and then the moon gets more activated because we're having to operate based off of our intuitive instincts. And so that's what moon is supposed to represent. Often what I see when people put down the moon in tarot readings, what I would see is they would call it illusions or lies or something's hidden. It felt quite ominous, often associated with it. But the moon, the way that I've interpreted it is as an intuition that we're being called to use. Like we're being called to use our intuition. That's how I interpret it as. It's that feminine life force energy. So I don't really see any of the tarot cards as ominous anymore because I understand what they're actually here to teach us. And if we're just seeing things from a fear-based lens, we're missing the point. So moon is luminous and it's that beautiful light in the darkness. It's beautiful that the universe gave us a light at night to guide us through the darkness so that we never feel like we're just cast in total darkness. And I think that's kind of the message that's communicated. You will always be guided no matter what. So I have here the more original art form version. I was like, that makes sense. The nice card, the 1900 version looks really nice and well designed, but it makes sense that they had a more simplified version of it. So the tarot started populating during the mid-15th century in Italy. It was used for gaming, especially for people like wealthy people who had money. They are able to buy those beautiful illustration card decks. And the first design, one of the more original designs, came from Jean Dodel Tarot of Marseille. And this is the moon card that they created in 1715. It's interesting, like how they had a much more limited color palette for simplified print illustrations. So that's what we're seeing here. And I think print was being designed around that time. And especially the different colors of print. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about description, observational information, where we're kind of interpreting it. I like to refer to it as description prescription. So we're describing sort of these facts, observational ideas about the moon, and then we're prescribing the medicine that goes with it. It's like, how does this help us to understand moon more, right? The symbology behind it. Okay, so here's a fun fact. The moon is 384,400,000 kilometers from the Earth. So I like to interpret this as, because it's the closest to the Earth, that the moon is the nearest and the dearest when it comes to helping us to understand our direction in life. So moon and sun and Earth have a very significant roles to play in our life as far as guiding us, what is the broader, bolder direction that we're being called to go in our life. The moon is about 1/4 the size of the Earth. So relational wise, it's 1/4 of the Earth. So that means it's kind of painting this picture of how moon is very closely related to Earth. They have a close relationship here. And, our Earth is our body, right? So our moon, that 1/4 is really affecting our moods, our energy, what's going on internally. Again, why the moon plays such an important role in terms of interpreting our chart. And it's closest to Earth, not the sun. The moon is the closest to the Earth. So as far as immediate impact goes, the moon is going to have the first immediate impact as far as your day-to-day life goes. The moon has craters, so I like to interpret this as receptive energy, imperfection. So you know how we have craters on our face? Sometimes, so that refers to like a very imperfect skin. And I think that's interesting to think about, because when we associate the moon is often associated with like beauty, beautiful gods or goddesses, quite fair in complexion, maybe beautiful skin. Some of the most beautiful celebrities have very strong moon placements in their chart, or an exalted moon. Very common for like Moon and Taurus people to be very attractive. So it ties us to this energy of like beauty, like are we attractive? But I think it's beautiful to also interpret craters as receptive, right? The depths that we are within us. We are moldable, we are imperfect, but we are also constantly receiving. The moon is often referred to as a satellite or an antenna. We'll get to that fact. The moon emits a luminous glow. So it's ethereal. I wrote ethereal, resonant, beautiful, or radiant. So the moon, when we look at it, we're like, it's just beautiful. It's almost always beautiful in the sky. So there's that connection to beauty, but there's also that energy of inner beauty within us. When we feel really contented in life and we feel attuned, we feel resonant with beauty. So the moon has no breathable atmosphere other than a thin layer. Not the best place to live on, planet to live on. Supposedly we went to the moon. Supposedly there's controversy around whether we did or did not. And if we did, why aren't we doing more things there? But I like to connect this to the message of how the moon represents how we struggle with clarity. And so that's part of our dharma karma in life, is to find clarity, and we have moments where we're more foggy. And that's why we don't always have clear crystal clarity every moment of every day. It's because we wax and we wane. So we struggle with clarity, and this is the thing that we're seeking the most. When you're able to gain clarity on life, your moon energy, that you've essentially have figured out the vision for your life, and you're able to move through your day-to-day life with more grace, is when you have that sense of clarity. But that develops over time. So that's part of our human incarnated role here, is to gain clarity through life and find a way to tune more into our intuition to do that. The moon has no liquid surface, but water ice exists in permanently shadowed craters at the poles. So no liquid surface, interesting, because, you know, that connection with water and tides, but water ice exists. Ice exists in permanently shadowed craters at the poles. So I interpret ice as Saturn. So this tells me that our moon is directly connected to our karma. Karma in the depths of the moon's shadow in the coolest region. So we all have some sort of karma if you're born human. I feel like you cannot be incarnated unless you have some sort of karma here to deal with, and your moon is going to reveal to you. I think your moon actually reveals what your karma is, actually. I think sun can illuminate the path towards your dharma. I think moon is a reflection of your karma, like where you're going to struggle, because this is going to be a place where you're going to wax wane, you're going to struggle with clarity at times, and you're not going to know what to do. So there's some Saturnian influence over every person's moon, regardless of conjunctions. I think those people who have aspects from the moon, maybe a heavier karma associated with it, but you know, in everyone's chart is inbuilt all the tools they need to overcome it. Earth's only natural satellite is moon. So moon is an organic companion. Moon is a representation of an organic companion, right? Your mother is your first companion when you're born. Everyone has to come from a mother. Every person came from a mom. So that is you're always given first person in your life was your mother, who gave birth to you, your first organic companion. So this also connects me to how we relate to others, because moon is connected to the earth. We got that companion-like energy. Our moon can refer to how we relate, how we connect to people, how we contribute to the tribe, how we contribute based off of what we're receiving. So, I'm always receiving all of these cool messages. This is my contribution to the world. I'd like to connect with people through philosophy, through astrology, through psychology, because this is what I'm receiving. This is my contribution. This is how I connect and relate to others. When I talk to people, it always becomes like a therapy session, because this is just how I process things. I'm always like thinking about how people think, and so that's what I help people navigate. This also refers to how the satellite is essentially an antenna. I've gotten visions about this. That literally, we all have this like antenna. We are an antenna. And our moon, when we start to connect deeper and deeper levels with the moon, we start to strengthen our antenna. And once we strengthen our antenna, the signal becomes very clear on Earth. We're on Earth, and we have an antenna, and we're connecting to the satellite, the moon. And it's helping us to get divine information and insight on the day-to-day basis that's flowing, right? As the moon's moving through the 27 lunar mansions, we're getting different, messages every day. It's really cool. The moon has cycles. It has cycles, therefore influences changing tides, creates emotional variation in us, and it makes us moody. Yeah, so every human is moody. I don't care what people be pretending that they're not sensitive. Every person is sensitive. It's just some people are numb to it. They don't know how to process it. They're not processing it. And life just gets harder when you don't process your sensitivity. So people who are more comfortable with their sensitivity tend to be considered light workers or old souls, because they're more comfortable with that. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to be comfortable with our sensitivity and move through life regardless. The moon orbits Earth once every 27.3 days. So I have here in parentheses sidereal month. This creates a cyclical variation. So 27 also takes us to the 27 nakshatras or lunar mansions. The moon's phases repeat every 29.5 days. This is considered a synodic month. The moon is tidally locked to Earth. We always see the same face. Now, that's an interesting fact. I didn't realize that. It kind of makes you wonder, is it a planet? Is it 3D if we're looking at the same face every day? It's very interesting. There is always a hidden side that is visible. So I interpret it as we're always seeing the same side. So there's a visible side to our personality, our self, and what we reveal to the world. And there's always a hidden side, right? Unless you flip that rock over, you're not going to know what's there. And that goes with our assignment as humans. We have to flip that rock over within ourselves to understand ourselves better. But it also just goes with other people getting to know you. They won't really get to know your deeper personality unless they flip that rock over, they get to know you. Take time to get to know you. So we always have a hidden side, no matter what. That means that we have, our innermost thoughts that are hidden from the world, and it's meant to be that way. We're meant to have a private life, right? So the moon is connected to our private self, our private life. A person with a strong moon influence can have distinct, contrasting personalities. Private versus public persona, and they can be well hidden. Yeah, so some people are very good at developing secretive personas. I actually find that the Cancer people, two different personalities. People are saying, oh, Gemini, two different personalities. No, I'm like, it's the water signs, guys. Like, they have every mood under the sun. Like, the air signs could flip, but I'm telling you, the water signs, every mood under the sun. And they could have strong moods too, strong night and day. The fire signs, so much more consistent. Like, you get to know them, they are who they are. They can have bad moods, but they go back to their self, and they are kind of that self behind the scenes, and they're that person in front of people too. Very interesting. Water houses too. You got those hidden houses, 4th, 8th, or 12th. Yeah, that person probably has a dual side personality. This could also make someone, because, we have that hidden side to us, this could create aspect to us that is deeply hidden. So we have these deep hidden insecurities. Unless we're processing that, we have deep unprocessed insecurities. And so a lot of people go through life, let's say they're trying to obtain fame and money and wealth and all this stuff. Most of the time that's because they have not deeply processed those deeper insecurities. I was talking to someone today, and we were talking about how it's so hard for people to change. It is really hard. It takes lifetimes, I believe, to change because we are stuck in our ways. But even then, change happens at a snail pace, at a turtle-like pace. You can't even rush it. When people are like reinventing their personalities like celebrities do, that's fake. That's not a reinvention. They haven't changed. They just created a different character, or they've shown a different creative side to themselves. But the actual insecurities, the karma dharma they're supposed to be processing, that is happening at a snail pace all the time. So unless we're processing that, it stays deeply hidden to even the person themselves. So I found that like in the Monster Inside series, a lot of these people were not doing deeper inner work, obviously. And so they would partake in poor behavior, and they didn't really think that deeply. They were very shallow. They didn't think that deeply as to why they did it until later. And most of the time it was because they were in prison. Then they would process it. But otherwise they would not process it. They would just keep doing what they were doing. So sometimes people end up finding, after these people die posthumously, after they've died, like celebrities and stuff, we'll be finding out things about them, like secrets and stuff, because of the moon. The moon hit all these aspects to their personality and their selves, because we are allowed, the divine, we are granted a private life. Sometimes it's hard to know those, so-called celebrities and who they really are. But the moon, with its tides, its phases and stuff, also tells us that we have patterns. We have patterns. We have the aspect to us you can see, the aspect to us that is hidden, but they're patterns and they're repetitive. The moon is slowly moving away from Earth at about 3.8 centimeters per year. That's interesting. I wasn't really sure what to interpret that as. I guess you could say maybe we're evolving to maybe not be so codependent on our moon, or not be so, maybe divine is like letting us to be more fluid with our personalities, and maybe we're not having this heavy influence of like fluctuations in our life as much each year. 3.8 centimeters less each year. The gravity on the moon is 1/6 that of Earth. So I felt like this is a representation of how we can be very ungrounded. So there's less gravity on the moon than there is on Earth. So gravity helps us to be present. Here on Earth, gravity is heavier. That makes perfect sense. It's 6 times more than that of the moon. So on the moon, it's 6 times less gravity. So we're floaty. This is where we can be very spacey, floaty, confused. This is why people they don't know what to decide on when it comes to relationships, what they want to eat. It's because maybe their moon is very ungrounded. The moon causes ocean tides through gravity, and the tides are predictable. Moods can be predicted. So according to research, you can predict the tides. So if you ever go to, if someone lives near the water, I've seen like the tides books, and it shows the tide fluctuations throughout the year. So you can actually predict the tides, just like an astrologer can see where the moon's going to be for the next 10 years. So we can actually predict the future. We can actually predict the future. Because everything moves in patterns. So that means that if you took the time, if you journaled, if you self-reflected for a little bit, if you prepared for your day, divine does allow you a peek into your future. They do. They allow you a peek into your future so you can prepare somewhat energetically. And unless we're really curious about knowing who we are, we don't ever get that far. But I think that's the cool thing about predictions. I thought for a moment in my life, maybe I just need to be present. I need to stop leaning into any predictions. And I don't actually like to use the word predictions when I title my videos, because I want people to be focused more on the lessons and taking certain lessons that they can use every day versus trying to think about, am I going to be okay because my moon is going through the 8th house or something, or I don't know, moon is going through my 8th house. And yeah, but what I try to do is I try to always use that future information to guide people to mentally prepare. And it's kind of cool. You know, prediction is cool. When I do the monthly readings for tarot, and then I see it unfold, it is remarkable to actually watch it and to see that it only confirms to me that we live, you know, in a divine matrix. Ultimately, we live in a divine matrix with different layers of matrices here, and that's what fascinates me the most. I'm like, how can you ever think we're alone? We're not connected to a divine source that is supporting us. As I've leaned more into my intuition, I've trusted it more and more, and it makes me more confident to take on life and even my karma, to take on the karma and to just go through it with grace and to know that I'm always going to be taken care of. That's all because of learning how to predict the future a little bit. So the moon also helps to stabilize Earth's axial tilt, stabilizing the climate over long periods of time. So I was thinking about how the moon is exalted in Taurus. So when our moon is stable, so is our body. So that's why people say meditate, because when you meditate, you sit there and you are very present and you get to engage with the world in a way that feels, you know, more connected. So it is important for us to ground, for us to connect to our bodies, for us to take care of our bodies, because without taking care of your body, things don't function very well, to say the least. So I thought that was cool how they connected that message of stability and Earth's axial tilt. So Earth is always doing a little bit of a tilt, but moon helps to stabilize that tilt. So without that relationship to our moon, we wouldn't be stabilized. The moon's orbit is elliptical. So it's not perfectly circular, so it's more like an oval here. This takes me to this energy of dynamic balance. Unlike a perfect circle, an ellipse has 2 focal points. So symbolically, this can represent life, consciousness, or truth is held between 2 centers, like the North and the South Pole, or Rahu and Ketu, not one. So this also connects me to Rahu and Ketu. So moon is not just operating based off of one singular energy, me, about myself. No, it's operating based off the relationship it has with the universe or in the cosmos. This also reminds me of how we connect with divine. Divine is always supporting us on our journey. So it's not about conforming. It's not about uniformity and just like being like perfect and organized. It's about finding that teeter-totter balance. This is powerful when applied to the moon. Its path is not perfect, yet it is stable. So this shows you that life is not perfect, but it is consistent. You know, divine is always here for us. Life is always supporting us no matter what. Some people say that the moon doesn't produce its own light, it reflects light. So I think that can complicate the messaging around reflection and how the moon is there for us to self-reflect on who we are and what we want in life. So yeah, that kind of complicates it. But according to some people, they say that the moon, this is a controversial opinion, but people say that the moon emits its own light. And I was wondering about that because when I was looking at a lot of karma when it came to women in relationship to men, a lot of the women were highly dependent on the men, overly dependent, codependent on the men to have their own sense of self. And this was maybe due to their own patterns of being effeminate and maybe what they saw with women growing up. So they saw that these women didn't really have their own sense of independence. So I think that is a challenge with the moon. It can create, wherever it's sitting, it can create some sort of codependency unless one learns to become independent. And we actually have some cool mythological deities who focus on independence, which I really love because I'm a Sagittarius moon. We love that. Virgo too. We love that too. But yeah, that made me think about that. I'm just like, yeah, why can't the moon emit its own light? And yeah, I don't think it matters too much. I think the moon, by the end of the day, even if it's getting its original light source from the sun, it's still reflecting it. Like, it looks beautiful. You know, the sun can burn your eyes and be so blinding and bright, whereas the moon, you can just stare at it forever and never get sick of it. And it feels relaxing. So regardless, the light that the moon does emanate does feel beautiful. It feels very graceful. So I think it's about, with women, what I notice as for myself as a woman is I have different fluctuations. I actually prefer more hidden energy. That's just kind of the way it works in my chart. But I don't need a lot of attention to feel good. And that feels good. You know, I don't really need attention like that to feel good. Most of the times I actually prefer less attention. I like, you know, a bit of recognition for my passions, but these days I just like doing it. I like creating it. That's what matters to me the most. I like watching my own videos, which is why I make them, so I can study information more and really deeply reflect on these ideas and concepts. But I love my variations as a woman. I embrace that. I love my different tides, my wax and wane energy, and it works for me. So to me, being hidden is a humble, honorable experience as a woman. And that's a personal journey. It has nothing to do with the guy. It has nothing to do with the man. You know, no one can take your light from you. I'm around people who like that attention, who likes to be out there and doing things. And I don't feel insecure around them because I like the way that my energy flows. And I've found a way to navigate it through the years. So that's, to me, it's about owning it, owning that feminine energy. The brightness of the moon changes due to the phase, distance from the earth, and the angle of the sunlight. So the brightness of the moon changes. It's not the same. The moon has its phases. The moon can be visible during the daytime. A full moon rises at sunset and sets at sunrise. A new moon rises and sets with the sun, making it hard to see. Now, these are cool facts that I have never, I don't geek out about things. I'm just not a technical person when it comes to tracking facts and details, but I thought that was really interesting. That a full moon rises at sunset and sets at sunrise. So that tells you, in relation to the sun, a full moon is strongly connected to the sun, and there's like a connection where they're fusing their energies together. Maybe why energy is particularly potent on full moons. And then we have a new moon where the moon rises and it sets with the sun. It rises at sunset and sets at sunrise. Oh, okay, sorry. Going back. So I thought it was fascinating. A full moon rises at sunset and sets at sunrise. Okay, yeah, relational. A new moon rises and sets with sun. Wow, that's cool. So, I think that is interesting because how sun is like that daylight, bright. It's this energy of initiating and beginning. So that new moon energy is initiating with the sun. It's getting ready to make, create, do, participate in the world, and the energy is resetting with the sun, which makes perfect sense. Let's go ahead and dive into part 4, where we get into the mythology around moon. So I have my pronunciation of gods and goddesses here. I'm going to talk about, we have a list of 25 different gods and goddesses, and I have some brief information. I have like a 1-sentence description, and then I have a description of their symbolic looks. And I thought this was important because in order for us to understand why these gods and goddesses are important, most of the time there's tons of symbology associated with their clothing, what they're holding. That was a way for people to understand what the connection was with these particular deities and their connection to, they may have called it planets, celestial bodies, or grahas. So this is in order of time period. So this is going to be in order of time period and the culture around it. Some of them are kind of in order. Okay, so the first one we have is Nanna or Sin. Nanna or Sin. Nanna are seen as Sumerian and Mesopotamian, dating back to 2500 to 2000 BCE. Nanna are seen the moon as a divine law and cosmic regulation, governing calendars, fertility, and moral order before the sun's authority. Nanna or seen is often depicted as mature, bearded man wearing a turban with a crescent moon symbol. Yeah, okay, so he's not wearing the turban. I think I got that information after I designed this. But let's just lean into the symbology, because I used AI to design these. Frequently, he is represented as a recumbent crescent moon, a bull or riding one, due to the shape of horns representing the crescent or sailing in the night sky barge. Okay, a lot of these deities, gods, and goddesses were connected to riding in the sky on some sort of chariot. So that was how the sun was described as well. It was like there's a chariot in the sky and there was a disc someone was taking with it. So it's described very similarly here. So here the moon is coming off as mature, right? He's a bearded man. He's a mature bearded man with a turban and a crescent moon symbol. We have a bull, so he's riding a bull, and a bull is actually connected to Taurus, so that's perfect. The bull or the ox I associate with Taurus. So I find that really cool. Okay, that's all my research about him. Moving on to Chandra or Soma. So this dates back to 1500 to 1200 BCE. The moon as the perceptive mind, emotional nourishment, and the fluctuating consciousness that receives and reflects light. Chandra is typically depicted as a youthful, handsome, and radiant god with pale or white skin, often featuring a crescent moon on his forehead. He's usually shown holding 2 white lotuses and riding a chariot drawn by 10 white horses or antelopes, traversing the night. I actually have 2 images that were created. So this one's cool because he's holding the scepter that is often associated with like Neptune or watery like energy, or even Shiva. So it's giving me that reference to Pisces, which is what the moon card is also connected to for tarot, is Pisces energy. Did I read all of? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I remember writing that down, but I don't remember reading that in my notes. Interesting. So he's depicted as youthful, handsome. So this definitely gives me the King of the Knight of Cups card, or a King of Cups, but the Knight of Cups is usually more of the youthful energy. So sometimes people who have this moon-like energy can come off as quite beautiful. They often are. When I get the water sign energies, I do get pale. I do get more fair-skinned person. Could be, someone who's more fair-skinned, has fair like features. So if you have a heavy influence, you could have like fair features. He's typically shown holding 2 white lotuses. So this connects us to lotus is supposed to be a representation of resilience through difficulty and learning how to maintain grace. And the 10 white horses, who knows, maybe each horse represents something different for this god. But that's a lot of horses, right? It's kind of showing that he's quite powerful. He's somewhere high on the hierarchy there. So moon also, like I said, it's connected to beauty. So this is where one would want to have certain, they would like to, if one has a particularly sensitive moon, they would want to remain beautiful or have beautiful features. This could be, if someone has a really sensitive moon, they can be very sensitive to like needing to get plastic surgery because they want to feel beautiful and maintain those youthful features. Chandra in Sanskrit translates into bright or shining or glittering, and it's used for the word moon. According to Chandra, it is lit and nourished by sun. Chandra is also the son of Dharma. So we've had some different references with the Vedic astrology talking about where moon comes from, but I liked this reference where Chandra is considered to be the son of Dharma, because I was thinking about sun and Dharma, and then we got moon, and moon is reflecting the light of the sun, and in this case, nourished by the sun. So it kind of makes sense. So it would also make sense that Dharma maybe would birth karma. Wouldn't that make sense? So Chandra, according to mythology stories, stole Tara from her husband. The Tara is the wife of Vrishapati, and she gave birth to Buddha, Mercury. So I wrote here, you are not the father. Turns out that Tara was pregnant with Chandra's son, not Vrishapati, her husband. And so she ended up giving her son to Chandra. And so Chandra raised Buddha, Mercury. So that tells us that Moon and Mercury have a very close relationship together, but it seems that Moon is more of the superior force here than Mercury. So Mercury has more of a lighthearted, intellectual approach to life. It's about sorting information and understanding it, but it's also connected to wisdom. So Mercury does try to seek the wisdom. And Vrishapati, I think, is kind of like a guru, like it's connected to Jupiter. So that relationship is very interesting here. So Jupiter is, I guess you could think of Jupiter or Vrishapati representation as Mercury's stepfather. That's kind of funny to think. So Chandra was married to 27 daughters of Daksha, representing the 27 nakshatras, or the lunar mansions. So the moon has a special relationship to nakshatras, particularly the 27 lunar mansions. And Chandra had a preference for Rohini. Interesting, right? And Chandra was actually punished, and I think given some sort of disease because he preferred Rohini. That was so funny. And then Rohini, or Chandra, was restored thanks to his friends. I don't know if it was Shukra or someone helped him out. So he got through life just fine. It was just for a moment that he was given a disease. So this connected me to how our moon can definitely create disease within us when it's not being sorted through. I think moon has that strong connection to karma. So without sorting your karma, we do develop diseases because we're going against health. Karma is basically going in a poor direction or a devolved direction in life. Whereas when we move towards our dharma, we are evolving, we are taking care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Chandra's phases are believed to influence human behavior, agriculture, and the timing of rituals. As the luminary of light, Chandra embodies the reflective and nurturing aspects of the cosmos, balancing the solar energies represented by Surya. So his phases are believed to influence human behavior. So our human behavior, as I talked about before, is influenced on a regular basis. Our food. I don't think we think too much about how moon can affect our food, right? But moon is connected to timing of things, the different phases we go through. And everything that grows on this earth goes through phases. And moon is a reflection of that phase. Sometimes people will say, this is a good time to start something with a new moon. Full moon, maybe it's a good time to end something or to set different intentions. So with the different phases, it is good for us to align our moon-like energy. Monday is dedicated to moon energy. So whereas everyone else is getting up for work, I'm tuning into my emotional mental awareness, and I'm using that Monday as a gentle reset day because it's not meant for hustle day. That's more Saturday or maybe Sunday or a Mars day, which would be Tuesday. So Chandra embodies the reflective and nurturing aspects of the cosmos. So the cosmos nurtures us, balancing the solar energies represented by Surya. So Surya is not the nurturer so much as moon is. Surya is more of the authority within us that is directing us towards a sense of right, of what we're being called to do or participate in. The next one we have here is Selene, which is the Greek representation of moon. And then we have Luna, which is the Roman representation, and I have a picture of Luna afterwards. So Selene existed during the 800s to 500 BCE archaic Greece. Selene is represented as the moon as longing and devotion, illuminating love that exists through distance, reflection, and cyclical return. She is typically depicted as a beautiful, pale-skinned woman, often wearing a crescent moon crown and driving a 2-horse or ox-drawn silver-white chariot across the night sky. She is frequently shown with flowing, billowing veil that represents the night clouds and sometimes carries a torch. All right, beautiful Selene. And actually a person who I wanted to use for my moon series was Selena, because I watched her documentary. And she was a Selene for sure, a very beautiful woman. So we're getting this graceful depiction of moon here. Very beautiful, very graceful. Selene, Greek nong, selas, perhaps, meaning light, brightness, and gleam. So there's another one where Chandra was the same thing. It was like glittering bright. Selene is the same thing, glittering bright. So moon, again, it's always emanating or giving off this energy of like light. So Selene is associated with themes of procreation and being a lover girl. She had many different lovers. According to a myth, one night as Selene drove her moon chariot across the sky, she spotted the handsome Endymion. She spotted the handsome Endymion asleep in the grass. Selene was so smitten by the mortal Endymion's beauty that she asked Zeus to give him eternal youth, preferably in his sleeping form. Zeus put him into an eternal sleep so that he would not age or die. Selene would visit the chamber where Endymion slept to gaze upon his exquisite beauty. With Endymion, Selene supposedly conceived 50 daughters, known as the Menai, or the goddesses of the lunar months. Okay, so then we're getting this connection to beauty and this preference for beauty and remaining beautiful or immortal. So I think our true divine self, when we're chasing youth, the true beauty that we're seeking is not physical beauty, but it's like internal immortality. We want to live forever. That is a desire or a preference that one can never get rid of. Like we want our life to continue, and the soul's journey does continue. And so through connecting with divine, we learn how to develop that immortality in a sense, like grow. And if you believe in reincarnation, then maybe we want to evolve to our next incarnation and we want to do something different. We want to have a bigger role, perhaps, and graduate from this role. And that's how we would maintain our immortality. So we love working on that. Staying here on Earth, yeah, not so much. Not my desire. Selene is also romantically connected to the gods Zeus, Pan, and her brother Helios in various myths. According to the Homeric hymns, Zeus and Selene conceived the goddesses Pandia, Greek for all brightness, and Ursa, Greek for dew. Some accounts also name Selene and Zeus as the parents of Nemea, or maybe Nemea, a nymph, and Dionysus, the god of wine. In his epic poem, Posthomerica, Greek poet Quintus of Smyrna, what's with all these names, designated Selene the mother of the Horae, or goddesses of the seasons, whom she conceived with Helios. Plato's renowned work, The Republic, also credits Selene as the mother of the Greek poet Musaeus. Several mythographies also suggest Selene bore the Nemean lion, a feared monster of Greek mythology. Okay, so here we're getting a representation of Selene's procreation. She has like 50 daughters with this guy, 50 daughters with that guy. Seem a little suspicious, girl. But this also connects me to the Queen of Cups in tarot. And the vision I've gotten for the Queen of Cups is that she loves her creations. She loves having children. That's definitely the vibe I'm getting for this Selene representation. So we're getting a very procreative, feminine version of Moon here that's coming through. So she obviously seems to have ability to connect with the other gods. So there's this relational energy, devotion, commitment. But she's an overseer. She's this protective light and energy over daughters, and looks like son. She gave birth to a lot of beautiful things into the world. So our moon can represent how our creative energy wants to show up and flow out of us into this world. How do we express ourselves? There's also a reference to, again, brightness we have here in dew. So when we were talking about Chandra, they referenced dew as well. So dew is that gentle touch of liquid or water on something early morning. Dewy is what I'm thinking of, like when it comes to your face. So it gives this like fresh life energy, and it takes me to beauty and how people, they spray themselves, they sprit themselves so they can look dewy. So it's connecting us to youth again. All right, and then I have Luna here, the Roman version. She showed up around 500 BCE onward, Rome. So Luna, the moon, as celestial order and visible time, regulating months, tides, and emotional rhythm through consistent cycles. She's depicted as a serene young woman with pale skin, often adorned with a crescent moon on her head or shoulders, driving a two-yoke chariot across the night sky. She is frequently shown wearing long, flowing robes, often blue or silver, and is sometimes accompanied by torches and stars, representing her role as the two-horned queen of the stars. Yeah, so I originally thought I was going to use this to talk in depth about, but I realized that Luna and Selene were essentially the same thing. And we're getting sort of the same messages, but that's a word that I often hear associated with moon is Luna. I think that's quite beautiful. I wanted to bring that up. Next one we have here is Artemis, which is the Greek representation of Diana, who is the Roman version. Artemis showed up around 700 BCE and onward throughout Greece. Artemis, or Diana, the moon, is represented here as a instinctual awareness, a bodily intuition, and the protector of natural rhythms, women, and the untamed psyche, originally associated with wilderness. So Artemis was originally associated with wilderness before she became part of the moon goddesses. Coral, so I have here coral tropic, child nurturing deity. She's a child nurturing, coral tropic, child nurturing deity. She's protective. So this gives us a mother bear energy is what we're getting from Artemis. She's depicted as youthful, athletic, a youthful, athletic maiden huntress, often wearing a short, knee-length chiton tunic for ease of movement, with a bow quiver of arrows, and accompanied by a deer or hunting dog. Yeah, I'm definitely getting a bit of Katniss energy here. So I thought this was a really cool representation because she is more of an independent version of Moon, feisty. Artemis was one of the three major virgin goddesses alongside Athena and Hestia. Artemis preferred to remain an unmarried maiden and was one of the three Greek goddesses over whom Aphrodite had no power. In myth and literature, Artemis is presented as a hunting goddess of the woods, surrounded by her chaste band of nymphs. In the myth of Actaeon, when the young hunter sees her bathing naked, he is transformed into a deer by the angered goddess and is then devoured by his own hunting dogs, who do not recognize their master. In the story of Callisto, the girl is driven away from something, and did I finish talking about it? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, there's a fierce energy. We're getting a fierce representation of Moon here. She's like a virgin goddess, so she is not pairing with anyone. And I think this is cool because sometimes we just associate that water sign energy or moon sign with needing to procreate or needing to be in relationships. But this is showing me like the gods or the goddesses are representations of how we ourselves can interpret that differently or independently for ourselves, whether we wanted to be in a relationship or not. She's clearly participating in her role. She's being protective. She's looking after others. She is hunting in the woods with her band of nymphs. So she's definitely alive with life as represented in these mythologies. Artemis' company, after breaking her vow of virginity, having... Oh, okay. Oh, this is a continuation of the story. So there's, in a story of Callisto, there's a girl who's driven away from Artemis' company after she broke her vow of virginity, having lain with and been impregnated by Zeus. So Artemis was like, no, girl, you gotta go somewhere else because we ain't doing that here, okay? No men. In the epic tradition, Artemis halted the winds, blowing the Greek ships during the Trojan War, standing the Greek fleet in Aulis. So she's basically a warrior. We're getting like warrior princess energy from Artemis. After King Agamemnon, the leader of the expedition, shot and killed her sacred deer. So there's also a vengefulness that's also coming through, a wrath I'm getting from this version of Artemis. Artemis demanded the sacrifice of Iphigenia. There's too many names for me. Agamemnon's young daughter. I feel like I read this in school or something. As compensation for her slain deer. In most versions, when Iphigenia is led to the altar to be offered as a sacrifice, Artemis pities her and takes her away, leaving a deer in her place. In the war that followed, Artemis supported the Trojans against the Greeks, and she challenged Hera in a battle. Yeah, very fierce. I mean, this isn't warrior princess. It's more like queen-like energy we're getting here. She's very much taking charge. So there's this is definitely giving me Moon and Kritika energy, where it's exalted, independent, leadership, transformative fire, fierce. That's kind of what I'm getting. It has no time to play games. That's the energy I'm getting from Artemis here. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about Hecate, the Greek Hecate. So Hecate existed around 700 to 500 BCE Greece. Did I spell her name wrong? Hecate or Hecate? Oh, her name is Hecate. What? How did I get that wrong? Okay, I gotta look at all these pronunciations from now on. Hecate. Her name is Hecate. Hecate, the moon as liminality and shadow, governing intuition at thresholds, crossroads, and moments of uncertainty. Depicted in triple form, Hecatea, with the three bodies or heads facing different directions to watch over intersections. She's commonly portrayed holding torches, keys, serpents, or daggers, often accompanied by dogs. It's a very fierce version of the moon representation showing up here. One of the mythology stories connected to Hecate was the search for Persephone. When Hades had abducted Persephone, Hecate used her torches to light the way for Demeter during her desperate search, establishing her role as a guide through darkness and transitions. She also serves as a companion in the underworld. After Persephone's return was negotiated, Hecate became her attendant and companion, frequently moving between the worlds of the living and the dead. So it looks like moon signifies a companion, a lover like Selene, but can also represent a companion like Artemis or Hecate, where one is being supportive and being a guide. So this is giving me more mature, motherly-like energy. So with this mythology where she's helping Persephone, this story helped to cement Hecate's identity as a powerful, chthonic underworld goddess associated with magic, witchcraft, and the night. Yeah, so when we think about moon and darkness, sometimes we have that connection of like witchy energy or witches. So they call it chthonic deity, the underworld. I think that's kind of cool. It just goes to show you that moon and Scorpio energy doesn't have to be this dark force. It can also connect us to a strong, powerful intuition. One having a strong sense of connection to magic and feeling like they can trust themselves through the night, not feeling scared, but overcoming those fears or being bold and fearless. While Persephone's myth is paramount, Hecate is also known for assisting Medea or Medea, with magical knowledge and fighting alongside the Olympians in the Gigantomachy. So she's also, just like Artemis, very similarly helping people to win battles, fight wars. So this energy isn't just like gentle, graceful moon. In my intro, I had the dark and the light waves, because that's supposed to be a representation of how, we have the shadow side to us. And that shadow gives us a bit of grit at times. Like we need a bit of that grit to get through life. You can't just let people walk over you. Some people think that is a representation of feminine energy, and it is not. It is not the representation of feminine energy. Feminine energy can be passive, but it can be very proactive. And Mother Bear, fierce, protective. Now we have here Mani. Mani existed around 800 to 1200 CE, the Viking age of Scandinavia. So Mani is considered Norse or Germanic. So Norse is more like like northern Germany. That's a portion of Germany, a particular area of Germany. Mani, the moon as a moving force pursued through the sky, symbolizing time's passage and the vulnerability of light. Mani is depicted as a beautiful, calm, and intelligent male figure with dark hair and silver eyes. He drives a horse-drawn chariot across the night sky, often accompanied by two children, Hideki and Bill, whom he rescued from a cruel life. He is constantly pursued by the wolf Hati. That's very interesting. So I love this protective energy. So now we're getting a father bear energy. We're getting a fatherly, nurturing, potent force. He is protective of the children. He's saving them from this darker, cruel life that they lived, and he's taking them towards salvation. He's giving us a bit of Witcher energy, perhaps. A lot of these tales are just stories that were told over time, over and over again. And someone just reimagined it differently. And how many movies have we seen the man like rescuing the children and taking them to safe ground? So that is what Mani represents here. And again, he's depicted as, beautiful, calm, intelligent, very King of Cups. We're getting more King of Cups energy here. Now we have here Note. Pronunciations are cracking me up. Note. So this is also Norse culture. This existed from 800 to 1200 CE. And this is particularly noticed or noted in the text. So it looks like, does she come back after Mani? Around the same time. The moon, Note, represents the moon-aligned goddess of the night, embodying rest, mystery, and the womb of renewal from which cycles emerge. Note is depicted as a dark, swarthy, and powerful giantess. She rides a horse named Hirimfaxi. I don't know how to say it. Frostmane, Hirimfaxi, across the sky, bringing darkness to the world. She's often portrayed with black hair. Oh, this one's blonde. Why did they get that wrong? Or a shrouded face. She is associated with sleep, dreams, and cosmic mystery. So kind of a female version of Mani here. Sleep, dreams, and cosmic mystery. Yeah, moon is very dreamy, and I often find that my dreams are associated with my moon. I dream about a lot of things connected to my moon sign, funny enough. So she's a powerful giantess, so we're getting a fierce warrior woman energy. The next person we have is Eri Onrod. Eri Onrod? Oh, okay. Eri Onrod. Eri Onrod. It's either Eri Ronhod or Eri Ron Hat. Eri Ann Rod. Eri Ronhod. So this is considered Welsh. She existed around 1100 to 1300 CE. She's represented in the Welsh manuscripts and, of course, with a lot of gods and goddesses' earlier oral roots. Arianhod, the moon as fate and rebirth, turning the silver wheel of time, karma, and so initiation. She's depicted as a powerful pale-skinned goddess of the moon, stars, fertility, and fate, often associated with a silver wheel, representing the cycle of life. She's frequently portrayed as a beautiful, sometimes stern figure, often shown holding a spindle or wheel, accompanied by an owl, representing her connection to wisdom and the night. Whoa, so Arianrod got everything going on. You know, it's funny because I have the Goddess Oracle deck with some of these goddesses on them. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't get all of this from the description there, but it looks like she has some pretty cool, fierce qualities other than just being beautiful. And I remember reading about Arianrod, and they talked about how she's connected to sort of time, or the wheel of time. But time relates to karma. So the time that we spend here on this earth is the karma that we are essentially moving through and navigating. So every bit of time that we experience here is suspended, not suspended, but it's immersed in karma. When time is timeless, you know, when we are out of our human incarnation, maybe somewhere else doing other things, cool things, and then time doesn't exist. But here time exists. And this is where we're initiated into this world. So we have soul initiation. We also have different initiations that happen throughout our journey as well. So they said she's powerful. She's connected to the moon, stars, fertility, and fate. You know, what is meant for us. And karma is always weaving its wheel to help us move in a beautiful direction, to help guide us, to help us create a beautiful life if we want to. But we have to be willing to do the work to create it. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. So that karma, I always tell people, is going to be based off of your free will choices and decisions. That's what's going to determine how your wheel of karma unfolds, or dharma unfolds. She's frequently portrayed as beautiful, sometimes stern figure, often showing a spindle wheel. Spindle or wheel. Yeah, I think what she's supposed to be holding has something to do with like weaving. And then she has this connection to wisdom and the owl, which I absolutely love. She has a role as a sovereignty initiator. Arianrod is often seen as a guardian of fate, associated with the silver wheel, or who challenges the hero, pushing him to achieve his destiny rather than giving it to him. Did I not just channel that? Yeah. Like, do you want to achieve your destiny or don't you? You know, I was talking to my nephew the other day, and I said, you know, it just kind of depends on, because he was talking about what he wanted to do. You know, kids think they kind of know what they want to do based off of the limited life experiences they have. And I'm like, well, you know, we'll see where destiny takes you. That's what I told him. I mean, I told him when you get older, you'll really decide. You'll have more of an opinion about what you really want to do. So Arianrod replaces Gowen as the footholder for the king Math. When tested for virginity by stepping over a magic wand, she produces 2 sons, Dylan and Lou, revealing a complex, potentially forced or magical conception. The virginity test, they call it. Interesting. So does she conceive them without a man? Well, technically, they said she stepped over a wand. What do you think that means? Where do we want to go with this? Okay, so we said, angry at the humiliation of her hidden pregnancy, Arianrod refuses to name her son, Lou, or give him weapons. She curses him so that he can only receive things from her directly, forcing her brother, Gwydion, to use trickery to overcome her challenges. The 3 curses are destinies. Interesting. So that sounds a bit challenging. That kind of ties me to how Moon and Scorpio can be even Taurus can be overprotective, overbearing, very controlling mother. So, and it looks like she's becoming a controlling mother because of her complex relationship with having kids. So maybe having a kid she didn't want. Or maybe there's some sort of shame associated with this pregnancy. So that actually plays out in real life. That's interesting. And so she seemed to have some sort of karmic dynamic with her son playing out here because of some unhappy experience she was having. very Moon in Scorpio. Okay, let's go ahead and look at Caridwen. Caridwen. I have pronunciation. I hope they're right. I don't know. I got it from ChatGPT, but it sounds so funny. Caridwen is Welsh. Caridwen showed up around the medieval Welsh tradition time during the 12th century in texts. Caridwen is a representation of the moon as transformation through descent, holding wisdom brewed in darkness and emotional upheaval. Yeah, I think we're getting quite a bit of emotional upheaval from some of these stories already. Caridwen is typically depicted as a crone, a sorceress, or a white sow. She's most commonly portrayed as a dark, intense figure guarding her cauldron of knowledge and magical brewing. As a shapeshifter, she's also associated with the moon and nature. So some of the mythology stories surrounding Caridwen is a rebirth as Taliesin. These names, man. They're getting me. Finally, Gwywan turned into a grain of corn, and Caridwen as a hen ate him. So there is a point where there was someone, and his name was Gwywan, and he turned into a grain of corn. Caridwen as a hen ate him. She became pregnant, and 9 months later, she gave birth to that child, whom she threw into the sea. He was rescued and became the legendary poet Taliesin. I'm sorry, what? She threw her baby into the ocean because she got pregnant. These poor women, they're like these random pregnancies, and they're just, it looks like they didn't, the consent or whatever. I don't know. It's definitely connecting me to motherhood and how it can be very difficult and challenging and very karmic for some people, especially when mothers have an expectation around how they think their child should exist and be in this world and how they thought their life was going to go, and how some mothers would prefer to remove that child from their life so that they don't have to deal with that. But interestingly enough, her child became a legendary poet. And so he's connected to the ocean, the water. His mother is connected to the moon energy. And it also goes to show that our poetic nature does come somewhat from our trauma. It does come from those waxing and waning, those trials that we've gone through, the low and the high tides of life. So this story is supposed to symbolize and cement Caridwen's role as a powerful goddess of transformation, magic, and rebirth. So in this sense, the rebirth of her child here, giving birth to her child, the energy going from corn to pregnancy to a child is supposed to show that she served as a vessel for this rebirth to happen. It also goes to show how women in general are vessels for incarnations to come into this world. And it also gives us an opportunity when we're born into our next incarnation for us to redo it, right? For us to live a different kind of life, to put in effort. So we can also thank the mother goddess or Mother Earth, mother goddess, mother God of the universe for giving us another chance to come into this world and to dissolve our karma even further. There's also a cauldron that is associated with Caridwen. She brewed a potion in her cauldron to grant inspiration, wisdom, and poetic genius. Poetic genius is Awen, her son, and poetic genius Awen to her son, Afagdu. Morphen. Oh my gosh, these names. She had a son, and she granted poetic genius to him. So she had multiple sons, and they all ended up being poetic geniuses. What's really cool is Moon or Jupiter is going through Purnavasu right now, and Purnavasu is considered the poet in a sense. And Purnavasu is Gemini Cancer. Gemini Cancer, strong poetic nature of someone who has that placement. So that's interesting. That's interesting. They keep talking about the poem. Guys, I did not read all of this. I kind of was like copying and pasting everything, but when I wrote my first thing, I kept hearing poet in my head. And so I put that in my intro because I was like, yeah, the moon does bring out our poetic nature. We all have an inner poet. So they're confirming it here in this story. So while stirring the potion, 3 hot drops splashed into the finger of her servant, Giwan Bak. Oh, I read the story backwards. So she was trying to make a potion to grant inspiration, wisdom, and poetic genius to her son. But unfortunately, accidentally, Giwan Bak, her servant, upon sucking his finger, the 3 drops that splashed onto his finger, he sucked his finger to soothe the burn, and he gained the knowledge that was meant for her son. Enraged, Saradwen went to pursue Guan, initiating a shape-shifting chase where they changed into various different creatures: the hare, greyhound, fish, otter, bird, or hawk. It sounds like a really good movie, actually. And then what ended up happening is Guan turned into a grain of corn, Caridwen ate him, and so they essentially fused their energies together. She ended up giving birth to a child who she didn't want. She wanted to give this poetic energy to her son, but by throwing that child into the water, this child ended up becoming the legendary poet who was granted these abilities and these gifts here. So it kind of goes to show how, again, we are granted our gifts, our poetic nature through karma and challenges that we go through. With Jupiter going through Purnavasu, Purnavasu is the energy of the poet. This is the later energy of Gemini, early energy of Cancer. So it brings out our poetic nature. That moon definitely births poets. Here, beautiful poets. And we have to connect to our inner poetic nature to be able to communicate to divine, because that's how divine communicates to us. They communicate through symbology and through symbols, through interpretive information. It's not quite literal. Next person we have is Chang'e. This is East Asian goddess that existed around 300 BCE during the Han Dynasty. And she's represented in texts and has earlier oral roots. Chang'e is a representation of the moon as the transcendence and exile, representing immortality gained through separation and longing. She's depicted as a breathtakingly beautiful, graceful, and ethereal woman dressed in flowing, long gowns with, at times, a celestial shawl. She's associated with the moon and often shown with long hair, black hair, fair skin, and red lips, frequently surrounded by clouds or holding a cassia branch. Okay, I think the cassia branch, forgive me if I'm wrong, but maybe it's associated with doves, kind of like an olive branch, but I don't know. Maybe it's a little different. Okay, so here she's, the moon representation is being depicted as beautiful, graceful, long, flowy. This feels very much what we think the physical look or attributes of moon would look like if it was personified into a person. Very attractive, graceful qualities. Okay. The next mythology deity we have here is Thoth. Thoth is a representation of, comes from Egyptian culture, and I don't have the date here. I was supposed to put that here. Apologize for that. But he existed at some point in time. So Thoth is the moon as represented as the memory and intelligence, recording time, symbols, and patterns that shape the consciousness and the wisdom. Thoth is depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or as a baboon, often with a lunar disc and crescent on his head, sometimes holding writing tools like a reed, pen, papyrus, or slate. These forms represent his roles as the moon god, Ibis, and the recorder of divine judgments, baboon, symbolizing knowledge, time, magic, and justice, with his Ibis form also referencing the hieroglyph for his time, the hieroglyph for his name, Djibouti. Okay, so this is an intellectual representation of moon here, recording time, learning how to understand symbology, understanding patterns, consciousness, and wisdom. Thought is connected to the 365-day calendar. So thought won 1/72nd of the moon's light, 5 days in a game of draughts, adding them to the previous 360-day year to create the modern calendar. So I guess we can thank Thought for our calendar. The Osiris myth. Thought played a key role in resurrecting Osiris, assisting Isis with powerful magic to restore him and helping to educate their son, Horus. So, if you've heard about the story of Osiris, who was chopped up by his brother, his scheming, jealous brother, and Isis, his devoted wife, helped to restore him. And it looks like she used some of Thought's magic to do it. As a divine scribe, Thought records the judgment of souls in the afterlife, weighing hearts against the feather of Ma'at to determine their fate. So he's like a divine scribe. So our moon energy is kind of like a projector in a sense. Like it's receiving the information, and it's also perceiving and also projecting a version. It's like giving back that feedback into the world, and it's projecting an image of what we think reality looks like here. So as a divine scribe, it looks like he's recording and receiving all of this information, but that judgment is connecting us back to karma here. And we have this afterlife reference. So that makes me think of Scorpio, afterlife, and also Pisces, weighing the hearts against the feather of Ma'at to determine their fate. A legendary dangerous text written by Thought that grants immense. So the Book of Thought is a legendary dangerous text. A legendary dangerous text. Is that AI? That might have been someone wrote that. A legendary dangerous text written by Thought that grants immense knowledge and power, often acting as a cautionary tale about seeking forbidden divine knowledge. Okay, I've heard of this. I've heard of people, seeking knowledge, and people are like, oh, forbidden knowledge, and nothing is forbidden. Like when we make it taboo, it sounds weird. Honestly, when you get the true divine advice from source, it's not that exciting. It's like live life, be a good person, is basically at the root of all the conversations I ever have with guides or just with divine in general, internally within me. It's all rooted in just working on yourself as a person. So this forbidden knowledge and this hidden information and this elites and people hiding information, that is distractions from the real story, which is your truest love story, which is the love story you have with yourself to take care of yourself. But it looks like, Thought can kind of represent that sort of dangerous energy of like, oh, people getting information to use against others. The thing is, when you become a divine child and you sign up to be a divine child, you don't have to worry about people taking advantage of you. They can't touch you. They can't touch you. They can try to like affect you. They can't really touch you because we're always divinely protected. And that's the message that gets lost in translation. And I would probably want to do more research behind Thought just to confirm that, because I think even, the Egyptians got really caught up in trying to hide and gatekeep knowledge, and you shouldn't gatekeep knowledge. And the true knowledge doesn't need to be gatekeeped, because a person can only understand it and interpret it through their heart and their integrity, through sincerity. You can't misuse the truth because you can't fake it. You can't fake it with God. You just can't do that. But that's cool, cautionary tale. I don't worry about that. I'm all about the opposite message. I definitely move in a different direction when it comes to what is considered forbidden knowledge, hidden knowledge. I think that's actually part of the illusionary mind that we get caught up in. That's, trying to be secretive and hide secrets. The only secrets you need to uncover is the secret to understand yourself and to know yourself. That's the most important thing. The next one we have is Khonsu. Now let me go ahead and look at this pronunciation to make sure I got this close. Khonsu. Very simple. Khonsu is from the Egyptian culture. Khonsu, the moon, is represented as a healer and guardian of night journeys, protecting travelers of both physical and inner worlds. I love that. So our inner worlds, physical and the inner. So I always say we travel our mind, we travel our hearts. In a sense, whenever there's travel, I have a travel oracle card that comes up in pick a card readings that's about traveling in here, consciousness. It's not about actually traveling, though that happens at times. Depicted as a mummiform youthful human wearing the side lock of hair, a crescent moon, and a full lunar disk on his head. As the son of Amun and Mut, he represents a child of God, Khonsu, the child, but also appears as a falcon-headed man, sometimes with a baboon form, bearing the crook and flail of royalty. Okay, so it looks like he has the crook or the flail, whatever AI is deciding for me right here. I don't get caught up in details because I'm like, it's more of what it represents in my heart that matters the most. He's represented as a child of God, and I was just talking about that. That's kind of interesting. I was probably channeling my notes there. But he's a child of divine. You are protected through all journeys here. And I was just talking about that. See, that's very weird. I was channeling that. I did not read these notes, guys. I just kind of got all of them on here because it was a lot of notes. And then I was like, okay, I got to shoot today because I won't have free time otherwise. So the falcon can also represent going on your journey. The falcon that's flying in the air, it can represent focusing. It can represent leadership, seeing and getting a higher perspective as well. I think we often see the falcon represented in Egyptian mythology, and it's usually a companion with the gods or goddesses, helping the primary person to get what they need in life. So it's about, getting to the root or getting to the goal or focusing throughout your journey. So they talked about the baboon form, and they also said baboon, recorder of judgments, baboon. Interesting that they use that word twice. And he's also connected to royalty. I love that. So this is more of a representation that I actually resonate with more. Okay, next one we have here, it looks like it's pronounced as Ya. Ya or Ya is how it's pronounced for the next person we have here. Ya. The moon is pure nocturnal light, an early embodiment of illumination in darkness and sacred timekeeping. Typically depicted as a man wearing a tight-fitting garment and a headdress featuring a crescent moon, often with a full moon disk resting on top. He is shown as a human figure, or sometimes as a falcon-headed man, reflecting the phases of the moon and his association with time. Okay. Beautiful. Again, we're getting that representation of time, illumination in the darkness, and sacred timekeeping. So we're getting repetitive references here with these three Egyptian figures. So they talked about the phases of the moon. Love that. So the next person we have here, this one is connected to the East Asian culture and is associated with Chang'e here, Yutu. So Yutu showed up around 206 BCE to 220 CE and is a jade rabbit, particularly from the culture of East Asia, the Han Dynasty. The moon here is represented as quiet devotion and healing, endlessly preparing the exiler of life through patience and service. So now we're kind of having this connection to Curidwen, and her cauldron. So there's like this exiler, there's this almost like ambrosia. They're trying to concoct, to heal, to create something. So that is what Yutu is supposed to represent. Yutu is typically depicted as a white rabbit living on the moon as a companion to the moon goddess Chang'e. He is typically portrayed standing on his hind legs using a pestle and mortar to pound the exiler of life or medicine. Cool. Rabbits. Well, rabbits are... I haven't gotten too much into rabbits. The only reference I really know about rabbits is to Alice in the Wonderland and how the rabbit guides her down the hole. So he's serving as a companion. He's serving as a companion to help provide her with what she needs. Perhaps. right? The exhaler of life or medicine. What do you think is in that exhaler? Elixir. What do you think is in that elixir? So it says patience and service. So this sounds like the journey of one who is committed to consistent healing and working on and overcoming their wounds, focusing on positivity. Jade also connects me to luck, right? Jade, luck, prosperity. So focusing on the prosperity or the abundance that shows up in our life through the grace of divine. The next person we have here is Tsukuyomi-no-Mikoto from the Shinto. I guess you can call it dynasty or culture. Existed around 700 CE in Kokjiki or Nihon Shoki. It's probably the location or what it was called at the time. Or it could be a period of time. Tsukuyomi-no-Mikoto. That's like a full name. They gave this guy a full, like, first, middle, and last. The moon as order, restraint, and moral conscience, reflecting balance and disharmony through night. He's typically generally portrayed as a noble, handsome, and serene male deity wearing traditional Japanese courtly robes. He is often associated with a cool, detached, and strict demeanor, sometimes wearing or accompanied by a crescent moon. A crescent moon imagery to symbolize his domain. Okay, so again, we're getting this reference to beauty, attractive, youth, young, and he looks noble. So this also brings me back to Kotsu, who had that royal connection as well. We got nobility, we have royalty. The next person we have here, Ishchel. It's pronounced Ishchel. Ishchel is Mayan. Existed around 250 to 900 CE, the classic Maya period. Ishchel, the moon as feminine medicine, fertility, and cyclical bodily wisdom woven into daily life and healing. Depicted as a young, beautiful maiden, goddess I, associated with fertility, or a mature crone, goddess O, linked to destruction, rain, and wisdom. She is frequently shown with a snake headdress, a rabbit, a weaving loom, or pouring water from a jar. Huh! Guys, isn't that weird? We just got the rabbit reference, now we're getting another rabbit reference. Fascinating. So this one has dual nature, and actually the next one we have, I didn't get the dual version, but also has a dual nature as well. We have the youth, the maiden, and then we have the goddess, the crone. And that's in all of us. We all have the maiden and the crone in us. So linked to destruction. So the maiden energy comes with fertility, like creating, bringing life into this world. And the crone brings destruction. So this feels very much like Mula, like energy, or Nariti, or Kali. So we got the destruction aspect of that feminine nature. We have rain and wisdom. So rain and wisdom. Rain brings nourishment. Sometimes it brings tears or sadness or gloominess as well. Learning lessons through difficulty. She is frequently shown with a snake headdress, a rabbit, a weaving loom. So weaving means participator of our destiny. Ironhod rod also had that. Ironhod also had that reference too. Pouring water from a jar. So that feels very Aquarian, or the star card. Pouring water from the card, or yeah, Aquarius. I love that. Yeah, the rabbit, so the rabbit they're connecting is to fertility. So we had the rabbit with Chang'e. Yutu, the rabbit, he was creating an exhaler, so he was creating like life. Elixir, sorry, I keep saying it wrong. We have here for our next person, Koi o shoki. Koi o shoki. Koi o shoki is how it is supposed to be pronounced. So this is Aztecan, 1300 to 1500 CE, the Aztec Empire. Koshoyoki, the moon as fragmentation and renewal, embodying the dismembered yet reoccurring feminine psyche. She is depicted as a powerful, near-naked woman with sagging breast and a stretched stomach. So that kind of represents like older woman. Maybe she's given birth to kids before. She's had kids in her womb before, indicating her role as a mother. Okay, there, I should just finish reading. She's shown with a severed head and limbs arranged in a spiral, representing her defeat after trying to kill their mother, Kotlikyu. Okay, why she did that? You should probably look it up if you want to. But we all have a wrathful nature inside of us. This you cannot deny. Just go through anything in life where it doesn't go the way, have a day where something just doesn't go the way that you want, and the wrath will come out of you. We all have a wrathful nature. And it says here, dismembered yet reoccurring feminine psyche. So maybe there's an aspect to us when we are disconnected from ourselves and our feminine psyche becomes quite distorted, and we end up doing things like trying to hurt people, right? Very Moon in Scorpio. Here, yeah. So maybe this is also, she's a representation of our disconnection from our feminine nature as well. The next person we have here is Mawu. This is West African. She existed around the pre-colonial West Africa period, oral tradition recorded 17th to 19th century. Okay, probably oral goddess that has existed way before time, like way before. Mawu is the representation of the moon goddess as gentleness and compassion, cooling the world with calm, fertility, and emotional balance. Mawu is revered supreme creator goddess of the West African people, the Fon or Iwe people, often depicted as wise, nurturing old mother residing in the West. She symbolizes the moon, night, gentle wisdom, and fertility. Beautiful. So Mawu had a partnership with Idol Hewedo, the great serpent. Idol Hewedo carried Mawu Lisa around to shape the earth. So Lisa is supposed to be her complementary, I think, form, who represents sun, day, and strength. So Mawu is frequently represented as a single dual-natured entity, Mawu Lisa, to show the balance of opposites such as female moon, goodness, gentleness, and male sun power. I love how they paired that together. That's beautiful. And that would have been nice to get a picture of that, but we'll just talk about it. Around to shape the earth, creating mountains from its excrement and valleys from its movement. Because the world was too heavy, Mawu Lisa ordered Idol Hewedo to coil beneath the earth to hold it in place, with its movements causing earthquakes, stabilizing the earth. Guys, isn't that interesting? And this is before they could go out and get their telescopes and be like, is the moon stabilizing the earth? How crazy is it to read up on this and say that in the mythology, they were saying that Mawu Lisa participated in helping to stabilize the earth. Wow. See, this is why intuition, guys, is so powerful. Mawu Lisa made humans from clay on the first day, made the earth habitable on the second, granted intelligence on the third, and provided tools on the fourth. 4 days of creation. So again, we're talking about moon's connection to the earth. There is some sort of connection, and I don't know, maybe I gotta do more research, but perhaps the moon, I know the plants do need break, right? They need shade. But yeah, maybe there is something that the moon is emitting that we energetically are receiving. It's just so subtle, we don't notice it. But we notice the potent force of the sun because we can feel it on our skin. She granted tools, so creating, this brings me to Moon in Taurus when we're making things on this earth, or Rohini Nakshatra. We have here intelligence, so the moon is mind, intelligence. Dividing realms. Mawu Lisa, often associated with the moon night, and Lisa, sun day, later delegated power over the world to their children, who became the major Vodan of the Fon pantheon. Okay, dividing realms. So it looks like Moon here has a place, Moon with Sun. And I was just talking about that. I was talking about how Moon and Sun have that a strong relationship together, and it's being exemplified through this mythology. They delegated power. So Moon and Sun are delegating. So that's us. We are the children of the world. So Moon is deciding, Moon and Sun are both deciding how the realms are being divided here, that we cannot see these invisible realms, and how we, as the children of Earth, are navigating these different realms. All right, let's move on to our next one here. Next one we have here is ba ba miwa na wa resa. Ba ba muwa wa wa na ba 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 moi na wa resa. Pre-colonial Zulu tradition. So Zulu culture is where this is from. It was recorded in the 19th century, but this is come through orally as well. The moon as rain bringing abundance and fertility, linking lunar cycles with nourishment and life. She is depicted as a benevolent, beautiful figure living in a sky hut made of rainbow arches, as the shapeshifter known as Nomkubulwane. She's associated with corn, wildflowers, peace, doves, and the tradition of beer. Interesting. The tradition of beer. Yeah, so again, benevolent, beautiful energy. I love the rainbow arches. That was the only one where they mentioned rainbows. We have the shape-shifting energy. Caridwen also talked about the shape-shifting as well as the corn association. Interesting. We got doves here. The next one we're going to talk about is Hina. So Hina is Polynesian. So Hina probably existed well before 1000 CE. Hina, the moon as creative femininity, weaving intuition, and the journey from earthly struggle to celestial wisdom. She's depicted as a serene yet powerful woman with long, flowing dark hair and a luminous aura. She is frequently shown creating kappa, bark cloth, in the moon or interacting with the ocean, symbolizing creativity, fertility, and the cycles of life. So here's some of the mythology connected to Hina. So Hina sparked my attention because I got a goddess oracle deck at a fair, and Hina was one of the ones that popped out for a pick a card reading, and I was drawn to her significance, what she represented, especially since I do, I feel like I have a connection to Hawaiian culture. So Polynesian is like next of left. Initially, the Sky Father Rangi and the Earth Mother Papa were in a tight embrace, keeping the worlds in darkness. Their children, including the god of the forests, Tane Mahuta, grew tired of the darkness and pushed them apart, allowing light to enter and life to flourish between them. So Earth and the sky, tight embrace, darkness, and then they were pushed apart by their children, including the god of the forests. Significance. So this story is central because it defines the relationship between humanity and nature, explaining the creation of the world as we know it today. While the creation story is paramount, the legends of the trickster hero Maui are equally vital, including his fishing up of the islands with a magical hook and snaring the sun to lengthen the day. These myths exist throughout the Polynesia, from New Zealand Maori to Hawaii, with regional variations emphasizing different gods or heroes. Okay. And now we have here Maori down below. We have here Rona, is what I like to call her. Rona. Yep, that's how you say it. Rona existed way before the 18th century, pre-colonial Polynesia. Rona, the moon as fate and tides, showing how emotion and circumstance pull humans into cyclical patterns. Interesting. Showing, oh, that's deep. Fate and the tides, showing how emotions in us, and circumstance pull us into our patterns. Yes, that statement is like spot on. In the minority mythology, Ronus is depicted as a woman, often holding a calabash. Cute. So it's kind of like the acorn-like shaped plant she has with her, and clinging to a nagayo tree, who was snatched up to the moon by Marama, the moon god, after cursing him for not lighting her path. She's commonly seen within the dark craters of the moon, serving as an explanation for lunar markings and the tides. Interesting. Yeah, so there's like kind of that wrathful karmic energy coming through. We got the craters, and then I was talking about Saturn and ice and its reference to karma here. It's a bit of a mysterious like energy. So fate and tides. Yeah, I would say for sure we have experiences that we are called to go through in life, and they are meant to be challenging. Our cyclical patterns. Next one we have here is Grandmother Moon from the Sioux culture, established by the 1000 to 1500 CE. Grandmother Moon signifies the moon as ancestral wisdom, guiding intuition, menstruation, and emotional harmony across generations. She's depicted as a nurturing but distant watcher who governs tides and cycles of 29 days. She's frequently visualized as a grandmother spirit, nokomis, guiding women's cycles and providing wisdom. So now we're getting a grandmother-like energy here from the Native American, indigenous Native American cultures here, connected to that feminine aspect within herself. Again, we got here guiding intuition. We have here wisdom. They have here ancestral wisdom. So these are lessons learned over generations. We got menstruation, so that's our natural cycles that we have. We have emotional harmony. Wow, beautiful. Yes, that has to be an intentional on our part to bring emotional harmony. The next one we have here is Lilith. She's from the Mesopotamian culture. It existed around the 2000 BCE. Here, Lilith, the dark moon archetype of rejected intuition and the untamed feminine power, reflecting shadow, autonomy, and projection. Lilith is primarily depicted in ancient Mesopotamian art and Jewish folklore as a powerful winged female entity, often representing a dangerous, untamed, or divine force, rather than a conventional deity. Early imagery, such as the Burney relief, shows her as a beautiful nude figure with bird-like talons for feet, wearing a horned cap and standing on lions, symbolizing her role as a ruler of the night or a dark goddess. Yes, and we have had many dark goddess representations. Lilith is another representation of that dark goddess-like energy. I hear people talk about her a lot, and I think a lot of people connect her to that dark feminine aspect within us. And our dark feminine aspect is a beautiful side to us that is meant to be uncovered and unraveled through our own self-reflection. It doesn't necessarily need to be acted out on, if you know what I mean. This is just something that we're meant to process. It's definitely a personal experience for everybody. The last one we have here, final moon deity representation we have here is the Shekinah. So this comes from the Jewish culture, existed around 1200 CE, and I think it was part of the Kabbalah. It could be anything. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think that's just a name, a part of their culture, what they call it, the Kabbalah. The moon as divine presence in exile, symbolizing sacred eminence, reflection, and spiritual return. She's often visualized as a queen, bride, or mother, representing God's nurturing presence in the world. Other imagery includes a divine winged being, a radiant light, or a compassionate figure. The feminine aspect of God representing immanence, nurturing, and compassion. Beautiful. So I think that's interesting. They said here the moon as divine presence in exile. So that sounds very 12th house energy, or Pisces, symbolizing sacred eminence, reflection, and spiritual return. Yep, yes, that sounds exactly like 12th house of moksha right there. So there's an aspect, this feels like completion. I'm glad this was the last one, because all the other ones were about the hills and the valleys of our journey. And this one sounds like the end of the journey, where everything comes back to one again and is realized. Yes. And there's this energy of oneness. There's this energy of ascension, because we got the wings. So it's like rising up, ascending, becoming more divine or becoming more radiant, or our halo becoming brighter. I love that. This is connected to a sense of completeness, us feeling nurtured and compassionate within ourselves. So ultimately, Moon is here to take us on a journey to learning more about ourselves. You know, it's about experiencing the high and the low tides in life. It's about moving through our karma gracefully. It's about navigating the darkness with courage and understanding that we always have a guiding light, divinity, always there guiding us through everything. We are never alone. Moon is there to activate that intelligence within us, an intuitive intelligence, a wisdom, you know, where we are self-reflecting, we're questioning, we're asking those questions, and we're really thinking about what we're learning through these experiences and what we're supposed to be focusing on here. There's a courageous nature here in this moon mythology that came out, a fierceness or a wrathness that I really like, because it just goes to show you we're not here to be just happy and polite or let people walk over us. Moon has that aspect to itself where it's calling for you to embrace leadership. You know, it's exalted in Kritika Nakshatra here. So Kritika Nakshatra is pretty fierce and is very direct, straight shooter, honestly. And that straight shooter-like energy is calling you to navigate that soft, receptive energy with grace, but also to move forward with confidence in yourself. The cycles in life, what women go through as they're going from maiden to crone, is they're learning how to become a lot more confident in themselves. And you often find that women speak to this. They talk about how important it is for them to become confident. And I'm not the biggest fan of how that's represented in culture. I know we live in the matrix and it's always going to be misrepresented. People think that being hyper independent or rejecting a guy or something like that is a representation of this fierce feminine energy. But I would say that really it's about self-reflection. You know, I was watching a show and I didn't understand why these women were chasing this man. They were chasing him until the very end, and they're like, you know what? I choose myself. And I was like, and she's all clapping for herself and applauding herself for being brave. And I was like, why did you need all of that drama, all of that conflict to come to this conclusion and to outwardly go out of your way to tell this man to bring him down just so you could feel good, and said that that was a representation of your independent feminine fierceness and you were choosing yourself and that you were great. She's like, I'm like, if you ever go around thinking that you're such a great person, there's something wrong. Because if anything, we should be going through this journey, learning how to embrace our flaws, our imperfections, to understand that we don't have to be perfect. But it's about maturely navigating each scenario, each circumstance, and all the patterns that we have within us with integrity. So I thought that was more important. I actually felt like she didn't navigate that situation with integrity because she was performing a specific person until she was ready to become a different character in the story. There's a switch up, and I think women think that switch up, that reinvention, is supposed to be a representation of claiming their independence, when truly you should be asking yourself, why were you interested in this guy to begin with if he wasn't that one for you? Why were you not more honest or straightforward about that? You know, I was that feels like confusion to me. And I think a lot of women, and just people in general, we are confused because we are navigating this life with emotions, thinking that that is our guide. And all throughout this, you know, we were talking about different depictions of moon, but not once were they putting this emphasis on, like, heavy emphasis on emotion. There is a heavy emphasis on wisdom. There is a heavy emphasis on, like, independence. There's a heavy emphasis on creation. So all of these gods and goddesses and deity forms were participating in this creative like energy, this healing like force with grace. And it was not with, there was some ego in some of these mythological stories, but they were navigating it with a sense of responsibility. And I think ultimately with the ice and the craters of the moon, that's what we should be redirecting, is to understand how we can be more emotionally responsible and sensitive in a way that is healthy, essentially emotionally intelligent in this world. How can we navigate this world in an emotionally intelligent way? Because our emotions fluctuate so much. So we are reactive, we are triggered, and not all of those emotions that we're feeling call for us to say something. Sometimes, most of the time, it's calling for us to reflect on it and to think about what we're feeling. And sometimes people just have such a hard time learning how to internally process what they're going through. They think that, let me just do something about it, or I got to do something in this world to, like, I stopped posting things about my life because I realized there was no benefit to it at all. Like, there was nothing I was getting out of it. It was making me feel more uncertain about myself because I started to become very performative in a character I was playing. So I was like, well, if I'm going to perform anything, I'm going to perform my passion for knowledge. I'm not going to perform my life, because life is quite, my life is quite simple, and I'm not. Sometimes we are so convinced we are these emotions. We are these characters that have all of these emotions, and it really has very little to do with I wouldn't say it has little to do with your soul journey. It's just not at the core or at the root. I would say keep digging deeper, so you don't need drama to happen in your life for you to have a strong sense of independence and like, oh, I'm going to reclaim my independence, my journey, and know that I choose myself. And I'm like, the thing is, you're never not choosing yourself. You just don't know it. It's about gaining that clarity on understanding that some part of you always chose yourself. You just have to become more clear about what that is and what that's going to look like moving forward. So I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation of the moon. Very thorough. I wanted to hit on all these points, and I hope you enjoyed some of the boring stories that we were navigating. It's always weird, I think, talking about it versus when I'm editing and putting it all together, then it all starts to come together. But by the end of the day, I'm like, I'm going to have this uploaded and up there, and I'm going to use this as a reference for me personally to go back to understand moon and its significance in our chart. After I'm done editing this and uploading this and I have more time through my transitions here, I'm going to go ahead and upload part 2 of the moon series, which will be moon in the zodiac signs. And I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I'll see you next time. Have a beautiful day or evening. And we'll see if I will have some time to upload some shorts about these incredible energies that we're going through right now. It's a beautiful time to be alive. All right. Have a beautiful day or evening. Bye.